ladies and gentlemen, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome you to the next webinar in our series of Digital Lifeboat. This morning's webinar is specifically in connection to how we can leverage technology in a crisis. And it's a real pleasure to shortly welcome our guest speaker this morning, which Aidan Cassidy from HubSpot. I did a little bit of research before this morning, and HubSpot have currently got over 73,000 clients in over 100 different countries. Their revenues increased by 30% this last year, and that was compounded by a further 30% the previous year. So it's a platform that's growing in influence. The philosophy of HubSpot is about building relationships. The whole concept behind the platform was very much to go with the sense of momentum from people, that they didn't want to carry on being interrupted for their attention, but instead wanted to have quality content and to develop and nurture relationships in a digital context. And that's what HubSpot have done so incredibly successfully over the last 10 or 15 years, is develop a tool which integrates both sales, marketing and customer service to enable us to develop those relationships and build and nurture relationships digitally with our prospects and our clients. So how appropriate is it to have a platform such as HubSpot available in a time such as this during COVID-19, where we have to self-isolate and work much more remotely and try to engage with our clients and with our prospects through these various platforms. So it's a real pleasure for me this morning to introduce to you Aidan Cassidy. Aidan is the channel manager, the UK channel manager for HubSpot. He's worked with over 300 different clients through the whole EMEA region. And he's not only got great experience working with corporates, but more pertinently with lots of SMEs, both in sales and in marketing. And Aidan this morning is going to look at the overview of the current situation, how HubSpot can help, and we'll also be looking at sort of practical tips. And we'll be handling that in our Q&A, and I'll introduce the Q&A after Aidan's given his presentation. And we've put together a panel, so please put your questions forward. We've also had some questions sent in to us before the actual webinar started. But would enjoy taking any questions you'd like to give us as well. And we'll be handling those in a discussion panel format after Aidan's discussion. So welcome, Aidan. I look forward to hearing you talk. Thank you.
Hey guys, good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? I'll take that as a yes until I'm told no. Thank you very much for the introduction, John. It's great to be here, and thank you all for turning up this morning for this next installment of the Digital Lifeboat series from Cognition. I think it's a great title. The lifeboat implying that you know, we need a bit of help at this time, and I think a lot of people and a lot of companies could do with a bit of help. So I mean, these are definitely some difficult times for many companies and many people, but we need to figure out how to adapt and how to go forward as business owners, as salespeople, as marketing people. And to do that, I think it's always helpful to try and get a sense of what's going on across marketing and sales. And that's what I hope to talk a bit about today, taking a look at some of the trends that we're seeing through our own research, and also give you guys a sense of what we're doing internally at HubSpot. Obviously, we're in this as much as you guys are. So we need to kind of figure out what we need to do differently. How can we market differently? How can we sell differently? How can we communicate differently? So it's a fairly short kind of presentation from me this morning, and then we'll kind of dive into the Q&A. I think the webinars are always that's the more interesting part of the webinar. So we'll dive in. I think this graphic it's an interesting one. Our international VP, G2, put this up at our sales all hands last week. And I think it's a graphic of hope, hopefully for many of us. in that there have been 7 major recessions in the last 50 years. And I think we can safely say that no two have been the same. You know, depending on your age, you can go back and count how many of these you can actually remember. But certainly everybody here will remember the last one, which was, you know, pretty bad in itself. But I think, we can take heart in the fact that we definitely, we know we will come out of this, be it, the V-shaped curve of recession, something more akin to a U-shaped curve, or, hopefully not, but something more like an L-shaped curve that goes on for a long time. I think our sense at the minute is that we're probably going to be closer to a U-shaped curve, where we see a return to growth in 21 and into 22 next year. I think the sheer speed and scale of what's happened with COVID it's been a bit of a shock to me personally, and I think it's potentially been a shock to many of you as well. And we don't know what's going to happen, but one thing I can be sure of is that there will be lots of opportunities for companies and for people to learn and to grow and really to develop new capabilities as we kind of go through this as well. So I think there's definitely some positives. For me personally, I think what happens when these types of things, when these types of shocks hit us, is that we can do kind of one of 3 things. We can kind of fight or flight, or we can do nothing. And I think it's the same for companies as well. So we can either just launch into action, do more of what we were doing before and kind of pretend that this thing isn't happening, or we can just kind of retreat from it completely. And I think for the majority of people, at least initially anyway, we can kind of just stop and kind of, as happens when you get a bit of a shock, you kind of just stop in your tracks and you don't really know what to do. And it can be a little bit hard to kind of get going again off the back of that. But I think for me, one of the things that has helped helped me personally is the fact that I know that HubSpot can help companies grow. And I know that we can help them get over some of the challenges that they're facing. So the graphic in front of you is just a few snippets from some of our closed won deals that we've closed over the last few weeks. And I think there's clear patterns emerging, and there's clear reasons why people are looking for help from technology. And thankfully we can be that technology that does help them. But there's common themes that are emerging all the time, and these themes are chiming with what we're seeing from our own research. I think, as John said, we have 73,000 customers. And so we have quite a good base of customers to go in and have a look at what's actually happening. Most of our customers are business owners, they are salespeople, they are marketing people, and they're using our technology to run all those different parts of their business. So, we, like everybody else, when things get pretty uncertain, and we're not really too sure what exactly is going on out there, we tend to look at the data. We're very firm believers in metrics and data, and we do kind of have the mantra of the data never lies. Maybe it does lie. Somebody will, a statistician out there will tell me that it does, I'm sure. But we are seeing very clear trends happening, and some of these are pretty obvious, as you would expect. More people are spending time online. We're all working from home. Some of us have lovely backgrounds. Some of us have kind of average backgrounds, I think. John's background is definitely a little bit nicer, and Peter's background, who's coming up later, his is the best today. But we're all spending much more time online. We're all working from home. So consequently, when we looked at the data, we were able to see clearly that website traffic in March was up pretty significantly on traffic in February. So what that says is that there are people out there who are evaluating their current challenges. They're potentially looking for new ways to solve those challenges. They're looking for new businesses to partner with, to work with, potentially to buy with as well, of course. And your website has become really important. It's always been important, but I think now even more so. It has to be that first touch point for anybody who's looking for help and looking for solutions. So this is back to basics in terms of the inbound approach, in terms of if we just go back one slide there, please, Tim. This is just back to basics in terms of the inbound approach of, having content that attracts people to your website, that helps them along each stage of their buying process. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Digital campaign activity, so email marketing activity, everything that goes around that, social media, content, conversions on your landing pages. All of this is up across all of our customer base, and including ourselves as well. So marketing is up, definitely. Engagement with marketing campaigns is up, which again, makes a lot of sense. People are at home. They have maybe a little bit more time in their hands. They're spending a lot more time online. And as a consequence, a lot of our customers are seeing contact growth. So they're getting new subscribers, they're getting new leads coming in, and we are seeing that trending upwards. Now, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into any of the statistics, you can simply do a quick Google search for HubSpot COVID benchmark data, and it should be at the top there. You'll get a little bit more specifics around some of these as well. But it's not all good news, unfortunately. Marketing is up, but sales is clearly down, and I'd say a lot of us are possibly feeling that pinch at the minute. So when we looked at the deal creation KPI across all of our customer portals, deal creation is down. Closed won deals are also down on where we were at last year and where we were at maybe a month before. Sales have reacted to that, of course, by potentially increasing their activity levels. So we're seeing more people reaching out. We're seeing, more prospecting happening. People going back out to, potentially customers that they didn't win before. They're going back out again to see if things have changed. So there's a lot of activity happening from sales, but unfortunately, responses are declining. People are understandably, busy, trying to deal with things that are going on. They're working from home, they're looking after their kids, minds maybe getting pulled in a million different directions, potentially not a great time to be getting back to a sales email. So that's totally understandable. So it's something that we have to try and figure out, is how do we prospect? How do we actually reach out to people during this time? And I'll talk a little bit about how we're thinking about that as well. The other positive is that customer initiated chat conversations have increased. We've seen this across all the customer portals, and we've seen it across our own site as well, which is good. So, I mean, we've been, seeing a huge kind of growth and a huge uptick in terms of engagement with chat on our own site. We've experimented with it extensively. So not just the chat on your website, but things like Facebook Messenger. So this idea of conversational marketing, people are on their phones, they're on the move all the time. They want instant answers, they want instant responses. So chat is something that I think, if you take nothing away from today, it's something you could potentially look at and, looking at for your own site, potentially looking at other chat channels such as Facebook Messenger as well. Cool. So marketing. So I'd say there's quite a few marketers potentially on the webinar today. I've worked in marketing myself. I worked at agencies. I've worked in marketing teams in the past. Marketing is the kind of mouthpiece of the company in many respects. So, full credit to, I think, our marketing team, and any marketing team is having to really juggle and kind of pivot and rethink what they're doing. Marketing, it's the kind of discipline and the kind of profession where, planning is just so important, and, having a good view of what the business is doing over the longer term can really impact the kind of marketing activities you're undertaking. So, a lot of teams and even within HubSpot, we've had to completely almost rip up our marketing plan for the year in some respects, and just change what we're doing to try and adapt to the current environment. So a couple of examples for you. We had scheduled a pretty large launch campaign for the new HubSpot CMS, it did go live on the 7th of April, but the campaign didn't really go live at the 7th of April. What we did instead was we took a more sales-led approach, a more one-to-one approach. We looked to our partner network for support in terms of getting the word out about it. So we had to completely change our approach to launching that product. I'd say we did a very, very soft and quiet launch, but we just didn't feel like it was appropriate to be doing an all-singing, whiz-bang kind of promotional campaign at this time. So we scaled that right back. Our content strategy has completely changed over the last few weeks, and it's moved very much again from a promotional type of strategy to more of an educational type of strategy. Now, we as a company, thankfully, have always leaned quite heavily into educational content anyway. So, we were fortunate that we already had quite a bit of content there that we could pull out and republish and re-promote. Things like, just helping people to adapt to remote working, to running virtual events, really just solving a lot of the challenges that we all find ourselves kind of facing now in this kind of new normal of remote working and doing business remotely. So content strategy, again, our content calendar was pretty much screwed up and thrown in the waste paper basket, and we just went back to square one. So that was done pretty quickly. So hopefully you'll see, if you're seeing content from HubSpot, it should be helpful, it should be educational. Events obviously are, hugely impacted by what's going on. All events are cancelled, all corporate travel's cancelled. We're currently still in lockdown here in Ireland. If you're based in the UK, you are too, and a lot of Europe is. So virtual events are the only way we can do events, and similar to the one we're doing this morning. So we're running content around how to do virtual events. We're doing all of our events virtually. So our partner day recently was, normally we have several hundred partners coming to the EMEA headquarters here in Dublin. That was all cancelled. We did all that remotely. There's still question marks over other events that we're doing. Our customer events we call hugs, so HubSpot user groups, they're all cancelled. So we're kind of doing the same thing as you are, and just trying to figure out how to do these things remotely and keep the momentum going. The other thing is I think I mentioned there already, was the research that we've done by looking into our customer base, looking at our portals. I think that was launched maybe a week ago or a week and a half ago. But in times of uncertainty, people definitely look for factual information. They want to see benchmarks. They want to know what's going on in the environment. It helps us, individually as marketers to know, where are we compared to where everybody else is? Are there other people in the same situation as us? So that kind of content, I think, is really useful at this time. So you can really think about how you potentially could do something similar for your own business as well. From a sales perspective, obviously sales is being hit probably harder at the minute. So we're seeing marketing metrics are improving, but sales metrics are actually in decline. So not entirely surprising. But I think one of the things that the HubSpot leadership did pretty well was setting out some guardrails for our sales teams. So when something like this happens, obviously, the first thing we need to do is we need to kind of be empathetic. We need to lead with empathy. We can't just carry on the way we were selling before, because the environment's totally changed. So I think having a few guardrails for your company, if you're a business person, you're a business owner, or you're working in sales, or you're just a marketer who's working with the sales teams, I think having those kind of guardrails around how you're going to go out there as a business is really important. So we do have some of those. I mentioned one there, which was being empathetic. So that's the first thing that our leadership team said to us, is like, we have to lead with empathy. But at the same time, we can't be over empathetic. We can't shy away from, asking hard questions and helping. You can do a disservice. If you're a salesperson, you can do a disservice to your clients and your prospects by not really helping them figure out what they need to do, not really tackling the kind of hard challenges they need to take on. The other thing is just being really clear about where we're going to try and put our time. And this kind of 2x2 grid that you see on the left is kind of how we're thinking about it. So we really want to be looking at these companies and these industries that, obviously the ones that are least affected are the ones that we can still work with. So businesses, this idea of demand and capacity. So businesses that have high demand and still have the capacity to meet that demand are pretty much running business as usual. So those are companies that we definitely want to speak to. On the other side of the on the top left, we have these companies who still have high demand, but are maybe struggling to meet that demand. They don't have that capacity there. So, we can change how we can change how we approach these companies. We know each of them may have different needs, and they may get value from HubSpot in different ways. So certainly, if you have high demand and low capacity, we know those customers will get value from things like the automation tools, from things like better attribution reporting around their campaigns. So just helping them get more from less resource. So the other thing I think from a sales perspective is that we have to keep in mind that for a lot of companies, their buying process will have changed dramatically. So budgets may be frozen, budgets may be being repurposed. Business models could be changing, strategies could be changing, teams can be changing, everything potentially can be changing for some of those businesses out there. So, we have to be cognizant of that. If we're leading with empathy, we're trying to, make sure that we're finding companies that can benefit from our software, and also try and figure out how to help them buy. At the end of the day, a lot of companies, some of them are very clear about how they buy, but when something like this happens, things can be thrown into a bit of disarray. So it's trying to help them figure out how they buy, and try for us, for ourselves, try and figure out how they're buying so that we can make that process as smooth as possible. So what can you do? I mean, hopefully we'll have some sense of what we're doing. I mean, it's not that we have all of the answers. We're not doing anything that's massively earth-shattering. I think the trends that we're seeing are, when you see them, you kind of go, yeah, that makes complete sense. So, I think if you're thinking about what you can do at the minute, potentially if you're seeing a little bit of downtime on the sales side, you can certainly look at, ramping up your marketing activity, improving your online presence. We're seeing, if you think back to the notes and why customers are buying HubSpot, I think sometimes things like this can become an accelerant for, plans that you had. So you might all of a sudden bring forward your plan to redo your website, to rewrite the content in your website, to really make sure that your content matches your buyers and the stages that those buyers are going through. So, there's a lot of work that can be done at the minute in terms of just repositioning yourself online. We're seeing lots of companies out there, companies like Airbnb, for example, who are completely pivoting their business models. And being able to do that is one of the skills I think that, that we'll all have to try and acquire. We need to learn how to do things differently. We need to learn how to adapt. And we can apply these to, all parts of our business. I think improving our online presence makes a lot of sense at the minute because people are spending a lot more time online. And plus we have the opportunity to actually do that now. And it will help us be in a good position as we come out the back of this as well. So if you're a little bit behind the curve in terms of your online presence and your website and how you're actually positioning yourself out there, now is probably a really good time to work on that. The other two opportunities I think are both related to efficiency. Essentially, it's wise to manage your cash. It's wise to manage your investments very closely at this time. And also, we're all looking for efficiency at this time as well. So from a marketing perspective, how we can do that and how technology can help us do that, and obviously I'm speaking from a HubSpot perspective, but using things like automation. So we're seeing a lot of customers join HubSpot because they need automation, they need workflows, this idea of this digital salesperson that can take new leads in, that can communicate with them effectively at the right times, that's able to kind of look out at that database and say, who are the people in there that we need to speak to now? Who are the people that we need to keep nurturing for a while? That kind of thing is where people are seeing the opportunity now, and they're using this time to kind of put that infrastructure in place so that when they come out the back of this, they'll be in a really good spot. Campaign reporting, attribution reporting. Again, these are all things that really come back to where do we put our time, where do we put our money, and where are we going to get the most bang for our buck. So I think those types of things now are definitely things that your marketing team can be looking at. From a sales perspective, I think clearly one of the biggest changes for some companies out there is this idea of moving from a field sales model to an inside sales model. We run an inside sales model at HubSpot. We don't really travel too much. We don't go out and see customers that much. Everything we do is kind of done remotely and done over Zoom. So this is kind of normal for us anyway. But for a lot of companies, it's not that normal. And putting the building blocks in place to be able to really run an effective inside sales model are things like having a CRM in place that people actually want to use, that's easy to use and can generate the types of reports that your management team need. Prospecting tools for salespeople, so things that make it easier for people to reach out. So, being able to actually do some research on a company, to be able to have a look on their website, see what kind of technology they're using. This is obviously from a technology perspective, but things that help you reach out to people in a more efficient way. Sales automation for keeping your CRM clean, for handling deals, for handling leads, all of that kind of stuff. And then obviously the reports that you need to kind of understand how all of this is working together. So these are probably the three kind of main takeaways from looking at our own kind of customer acquisition recently. Why are people joining HubSpot? What do they want from the technology? How can we help them? I think generally speaking, these three areas are the kind of sweet spots for a lot of people right now. A couple of other ways that we're trying to help companies. So we can't just lead with empathy. That's not enough. What we also want to do is try and make it easier for these companies to, begin or accelerate their journey to a more digitized kind of strategy. So looking at ways that we can leverage our product or give our product to more people so that people can actually use these tools to run their businesses. Things like we're giving some of our sales tools to companies free for the next 90 days. So our meetings booking tool that takes a lot of the pain out of kind of back and forth for arranging meetings with people, that's now free for the next 90 days. Our quotes tool and our e-signature tool are all free for 90 days. Now these are, we're trying to think, well, what do people need now? They need to try and close some business. They need to get some sales in. These are the types of tools that we can help people do that with. For our existing customers, we're just increasing a lot of the limits on the platform. So we don't want to impose any restrictions on people if they're trying to ramp up their marketing activities at the minute. We don't want them hitting limits that actually cause those things to slow down. So we're increasing the email send limits for our Marketing Hub Professional and Enterprise customers. We're increasing the calling limits within the CRM. So those sales teams, service teams can just get on the phone, can actually, try and help that business, grow their way out of this. And also for small businesses, I think, I was watching the news. It was a news program. It's a little bit like Newsnight, but it's the Irish version. And they had some small business owners on the program, and one of them was saying that the small business sector employs over 50% of the population in Ireland, and clearly, a lot of those small businesses are the ones that are getting hit the hardest at the minute. Any bricks and mortar type stores are, under severe pressure. And other small businesses are under severe pressure as well. So we've reduced the prices on our starter growth suite. So the Sales Hub, Marketing Hub, and Service Hub suite is now down to, I think it's $50 for the lot. So we've slashed the price on that just to help some of those small businesses again. So those are just a few practical things we can do at the minute, and I'm sure there will be more things coming as well. I think that's it. I think that's all from me. So I don't know, John, if you were going to jump back in there.
Yep. Thanks, Aidan. Thank you very much, Aidan. That's great. I just wanted to introduce you now to a couple of people that are going to be joining Aidan. We got Dr. Peter Hughes, who's a Doctor of Psychology and also a co-founder of Cognition. And we're also joined by Sophie Easthope, who's our account director. So they're all online. And I'm going to hand over now to these guys, and we're going to run it discussion style. We've had some questions that we asked to get sent in beforehand, and I think I'm going to hand over to Peter, and he's going to lead a discussion around the questions that we've been sent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much, John. And thanks, Aidan, for that. That was great. It's a really good overview, not only of where HubSpot are at the moment, but I think of how HubSpot can help businesses of all sizes, but especially those in the mid-market sector at the moment. That was really useful, and it has prompted quite a few questions. I think really the first one that come through is that, has there been a change in the type of content that businesses are engaging with now? Has HubSpot noticed any change?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, fundamentally, I think the major shift is away from promotional content to educational content. I think, I think anybody who's using LinkedIn or anything like that will notice that there are definite trends out there. So, there's been a big switch towards, helpful educational type content. A lot of, and it's not just us by any stretch, a lot of companies are trying to market by helping other companies. And I think that's a really good approach at the minute because it adds value. And I think it's, it's being a good corporate citizen for a start. But I think from a marketing perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Largely, I think promotional messages, things that are a bit off topic, and or just completely ignore what's going on around us, I think they're just going to fall on deaf ears. So, I mean, you can certainly try that, but it's probably not going to have the same impact as something that's useful.
It's interesting what you said there. You mentioned it several times in the presentation that how HubSpot leads with empathy. It creates empathy, it generates empathy, it leads with empathy. Surely the essence of empathy is actually to educate rather than to promote. So when you're engaging with your clients is to help them rather than try and sell to them. Do you think this is a trend that will endure, or do you think?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I think it is. And fundamentally, I think you can go even one step back from empathy. And if you take it right back to a basic human skill, it's about listening. I think empathy begins with listening, and I think certainly, coming from a sales background myself, listening is a fundamental skill for anybody to master. But as a business, if you're not listening, then it's going to hinder your growth. It's going to hinder the success of everything that you do from a marketing perspective. It's going to hinder your success from a sales perspective. And I think I mentioned that when we come through this, we're going to have some new skills. And I would definitely see that being better at listening is going to be something that we'll all kind of have to do. And I don't mean individually as humans. Hopefully, we're all capable of being good listeners. But as businesses, I think we get too concerned with banging our own drum. Talking about ourselves all the time. Shouting about our products. Aren't we great? Blah blah blah. And I think that'll be good that'll be a good exercise for people over the next while, is to actually flip that and put the focus on, the market, put the focus on their customers, put the focus on their buyers, and try and generate some value through their marketing for those people.
It's interesting because I think HubSpot in the last month, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, they launched a new CMS. And one of the things that was interesting about that, there's something now called multi-touch attribution reporting.
Yes.
And I want you to say something about that if you can, but in the context really of listening to prospects, listening to customers, understanding more the journey they take from being a cold prospect, if you want, to being a customer. And it's really, it seems to me to be quite an interesting innovation that HubSpot have introduced. Can you say something about that and how it helps us understand and listen to our customers?
Yeah, so I mean, multi-touch attribution it's kind of, I mean, it can get complex enough as well. There's different models, right? So everybody's kind of familiar with the first touch, last touch kind of attribution models, right? This person first arrived at this point and then they became a customer, or this was the last thing they did before they became a customer. Multi-touch revenue attribution, it gives you the power to look at different models and different ways of slicing and dicing that person's journey. So it measures all the points from A through to Z that person took before they became a customer, and it can attribute value to all those steps along the way. Now, what that means is that you can get much more granular in terms of understanding what's actually driving revenue, what's actually driving success within your marketing, as opposed to giving too much credit to one point or the other. So I suppose it's listening, but it's listening from a technology perspective. And what that means is that you can kind of make better decisions about where you spend your calories and where you put your efforts, because you will get a very different picture from, depending on the different models that you have. And I think for companies that are already scaled up in terms of running their campaigns, that are using lots of different channels, that are trying lots of different strategies and tactics, it can be very difficult at the end of the day to turn around and say, it's the classic marketing conundrum of, what did we actually, what did we impact there? How much revenue did we actually drive? What worked? What didn't work? So it's a useful way to kind of go about analyzing what you've done in order to inform what you're going to do.
That's great. Thanks, Aidan. If I can just come to you for a moment, Sophie. Obviously, you've helped on behalf of Cognition really implement HubSpot in God knows how many territories it is now in different parts of the world. And how do you think that HubSpot can help with the framing really and the implementation of a marketing strategy from your own experience?
I think really to a point Aidan made earlier, it's about where are you going to get that bang for your buck. So the thing that we see with HubSpot is it starts to give that visibility, which when we speak to a lot of clients, their challenge is they actually don't know what's working for them. So we'll go into a business that have been spending thousands on marketing, but they actually don't really know what that's been returning. So for us, it's about going in, we'll create a strategy, but you need to be able to move with that strategy. So you need to look at what's working in HubSpot, so that visibility in the system, but also, being quite bold with your decisions. So if something's not working as well, deciding, right, we're not going to focus on that channel and that tactic anymore. We've got the data, we've got the evidence in HubSpot, so let's stop doing it. And I think that's quite a common pitfall with a lot of clients. They keep doing what they're used to, and they don't always pay attention to the data and what they're seeing in front of them. So for me, it's about, let's not just have a platform and use it to execute marketing activity, but let's use it to really read that data and then adapt our strategy based on what isn't working. And just to that point, really, we've worked with territories across the globe, and everywhere we go, whether it be Asia, whether it be South America, whether, the UK, we see the same issue, and it's that, people just don't use the data effectively. So for me, as an account director, it's really, really important that we are analysing it, and then we're advising our clients with sort of the best strategy to take, and make sure that they are, they're actioning what they're seeing in their portal.
I think that's a good point, really. If I just make a point really to supplement that, which is, and speaking now from a psychological point of view, I think it was Nassim Taleb who made the point that facts will come and go, stories stick. I think we're much more comfortable listening to a story than we are, for instance, dealing with data and trying to analyze that data and make effective decisions on the basis of that data, especially when it contradicts some of our deeply held beliefs or some assumptions that have been running our business on for some considerable time. And I think that leading on from that, really, the sharing of data and information, and the information, how that can affect the behavior of sales and marketing teams. How have you found HubSpot able to do that, to create better alignment based on a better relationship between sales and marketing, which is itself based on better data? Sophie?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think what we see with a lot of businesses is that marketing and sales, they're completely disjointed, and they're both focused on their own role and what they need to do. HubSpot brings that all together, so it's not two different teams, it's one team. So what we again typically do when we're working with businesses is looking at what are their expectations. So what do we want marketing to deliver into sales? Because it's all well and good marketing saying, well, you know, we've delivered you those 20 leads this month, but if they're not the right quality leads, then it's pointless. So it's about opening up that communication, but also having the data and the reporting to back it up, so that, again, back to your point, Peter, it's not people just throwing around statements, what they, you know, the beliefs that they've got. It's actually based on evidence, so we can see how those marketing leads are performing through the funnel, and actually are they converting. And likewise, from a sales perspective, it gives the sales guys the opportunity to drill into that data, and actually they have a whole wealth of information about each lead that they're getting, which HubSpot picks up. And that's really, really valuable. And sales can then feed that back into the marketing team. So typically we make sure that when we're speaking with our clients, we're getting the marketing and sales teams to have regular meetings and really feeding back into one another, because it's not about working against each other, it's about working together. And if marketing aren't providing the right quality lead for sales, or sales aren't following up on those leads effectively, then there's a breakdown. So
okay, that's great. That's fantastic, Sophie. If I can, and I think that's a key thing a lot of businesses face, which is sales and marketing alignment. But coming back to you, Aidan, how can HubSpot right now help people work remotely? How can it help prepare people for coming out of lockdown, re-engaging with the world on more normal footing? How can HubSpot help with that right now?
Yeah, I suppose it's a good question. I mean, we're all so reliant on technology at the minute. I think, Peter, you know, it's not going to just be HubSpot for a start, right? I think there's lots of pieces of technology. I think Zoom being the one that everybody knows the best. You know, there's been a huge acceleration in adoption for these types of technologies. I think for any business at the minute, you know, collaboration tools, shared information, these are the things that we need to still function as a team. So if I, you know, we use HubSpot in HubSpot every day. So we've teams of over 2,000 across the world. We've got a sales team of over 400 people here in EMEA. You know, we're very much reliant on the CRM tools. So, you know, having a record of all the interactions that we have with our customers, having a record of all the interactions that we have with our prospects and the people that we're talking to, being able to collaborate within that system and around those different people and companies, I think is the thing that we're finding the most useful at the minute, and the reports that we can generate as well. So, you know, I think just having access to the data, the fact that it's all synced up, that everybody has access to the same information, and that we can generate pretty reliable reports off the back of it. I think if you're lucky enough to have that now, then that will be helping you a lot as a business. If you don't have that, then that's something that can be done. It's not beyond the realms of possibility to get that implemented pretty quickly. So, you know, something like, I think like HubSpot would be useful in that regard, because it enables that kind of collaboration and enables you to kind of keep that system of record up to date and communicate around your customer essentially. So that's what we're all here for.
Great, thanks. And a final question really before we wrap up. What will the sales and marketing landscape look like, do you think, as we emerge from the current crisis? How will it have changed?
Did you send me the crystal ball over last week?
I did, actually. I don't know if it's arrived. I've been trouble with the courier.
It's a great question. I'd love to say I know the answer, Peter, but I think look, I'm a pretty positive kind of person. You know, there's a lot to be kind of anxious about at the minute, but I think there's a lot to be positive about as well. From a sales perspective, I think we are, you know, we're going to come out of this hopefully having built up some good relationships. You know, if we do manage to lead with empathy, if we do manage to do our jobs with, you know, and continue respectfully and help people, I think, you know, we'll have some good relationships with our customers. We'll have created some good relationships with people who might become our customers, And we'll have learned a few lessons. I think anybody who's worked in sales for a long time has probably been through a few of these already and come out the other side. Those of us who have been in sales for less time, I think we'll definitely come out of this and we'll realize that, we can be helpful for people. Being a professional in a sales career means that you can actually go out there and you can help companies get over their challenges. You can help them figure out what they need to do. And I suppose just from a more practical standpoint, we might have sharpened our skills a little bit in terms of, how we go about the business of prospecting, how we go about the business of, meeting with clients and figuring out how to help them. So those are all skills I think that salespeople will take away. From a marketing perspective, I guess it's back to this idea of, I kind of feel like these things can be an accelerant, so I would see the market moving on quite considerably over the next kind of 6 to 12 months. I think, we're definitely seeing a lot of smaller businesses now adopting these tools, adopting the technology that, potentially was, more of a mid-market, the enterprise type space. So I think we're seeing a lot of that opening up. So fundamentally, I think, for us and for lots of other companies out there, I think, there could be an acceleration around the adoption of technology. And I think people will definitely be upskilling during this time as well. So learning new ways to run marketing. I think, like today's webinar, for example, there'll be lots of companies learning how to do things like this. So I think ultimately it will be good for both sales and marketing. I think we'll have a few scraped knees along the way. There might be some tricky periods between now and then. But I do think we'll come out of this, and I do think we'll grow and we'll develop some new skill sets along the way.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks very much, Aidan. I can echo that as well. I think if there's one good thing that come out of this crisis, is that businesses will actually start thinking about the technology they're using, the technology stack they're using, thinking about the automation platform they're using, and looking to automate their marketing and sales much more effectively and efficiently than they are at the moment. And if that is one of the things that can come out of this crisis, I think it'll be good for business. But thanks again, Aidan. I really appreciate your contribution this morning. And also to you, Sophie. Thank you very much indeed. And I'll hand back now to John Berry.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I want to reiterate your thanks, Peter, to yourself and to Sophie. And a special thanks to Aidan. Really great you joining us this morning. It just leaves me to wrap things up quickly. Just to tell you quickly about our next webinar series. We finished this particular series of 4 webinars, but we're pleased to tell you that on Thursday, the 7th of May, we're going to start a series of 4 webinars around data, debt, and mental health. We're going to be looking at the effects of mental health on ourselves and our workforce. We're going to be looking at the whole area of managing debt. And we're also going to specifically look at how data can be harnessed to help be part of the solution to beat this virus. So interesting, very different subject areas, but very, very relevant to the situation we're in. I'd also like to invite you to take a look at Cognition. If you don't know us, take a look at HubSpot. There's some great information and data and training there as well. And finally, we'd love to help wherever we could. So one thing we'd really enjoy doing is taking a virtual coffee break. So if you want to set up a Zoom call with one of our account managers, one of our account directors, with Peter, with Tim, any of the team, we'd love to talk to you and talk over your specific situation and see how we can help. Thanks for attending this morning. Great to meet you all online, virtually. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.